Welcome to this special edition, Big 14's 2024 season predictions for the Big Ten. I am your host with the most college football information, SlimmDa KID, the host of two more of your favorite podcasts, Round 2 Wrestling, your number one news source for everything pro wrestling, and You Don't Know Sports, a small collection of sports stories you may or may not have heard about. Today we are going to give our predictions for the upcoming 2024 season, and we are going to kick things off right here, right now. The Illinois Fighting Illini. Finishing the 2023 season, Illinois was 5-7 overall with a passing attack ranked 52nd overall and a dismal 182nd in rushing. Defensively, they weren't much better, finishing 225th in points against. 2024 doesn't look to be much easier for the Illini. Our prediction here at Big 14 is 4-8 overall. The Indiana Hoosiers. The Hoosiers have not had a good season in football for a while, and 2024 looks to be no different. Ranked 140th in passing, 196th in rushing, Indiana's offense struggled last year, coupled with defense that ranked 234th in points allowed. 24 brings an easier schedule for the Hoosiers, but overall, Big 14 predicts a 3-9 finish to 2024. The Iowa Hawkeyes. Iowa won the Big Ten West last year before getting dismantled in the Big Ten championship game by Michigan. Iowa returns a fan favorite to contend for the Big Ten title, but many questions for the upcoming season have yet to be answered. Iowa wasn't the strongest team in the Big Ten last year. They happened to play in a particularly weak West Division and finished 258th in passing, 207th in rushing, and 56th in points against. A mixed bag of nuts schedule-wise, Iowa should finish this year 8-4. Maryland Terrapins. Maryland had a decent season in 2023, much to the surprise of the Big Ten. A powerful passing attack made Maryland a contender early on before losing several key games later in the season. With Tagovailoa gone from the quarterback position, Maryland could struggle in 2024. Maryland ranked 31st in passing and 227th in rushing in 2023, with a defense that ranked 139th in points allowed. 2024 will be tough on the Terrapins, but should finish 5-7, just missing a bowl game. Michigan State Spartans. The Spartans have had their fair share of drama and issues. Former head coach Mel Tucker is suing the school and was fired as head coach last year, and the team hasn't really been the same since the early 2010s. A new head coach from Oregon State and a new quarterback from the same college have people in East Lansing hoping for a revival. MSU did poorly on offense last season, finishing 168th in passing, 251st in rushing, and was 210th in points allowed. Things might be improving slightly for Sparty, but 24 won't be easy. Big 14 predicts a 6-6 finish with MSU as a bubble team to make a bowl game. Michigan Wolverines. The defending national champions lost a lot in the offseason. Their head coach left for the NFL, as did their starting quarterback J.J. McCarthy and starting running back Blake Corum, amongst several other players, either to the NFL draft or graduation. That being said, there is cause for concern in Ann Arbor, Michigan. Allegations of cheating from last season have only intensified with the threat of serious punishments looming ahead. Despite this, Michigan finished 135th in passing, 84th in rushing, and 42nd in points against on a way to a national title last season. With all the distractions, new coaches, and possible sanctions this year, U of M has an uphill battle. After going undefeated in 2023, we here at Big 14 predict a 9-3 season for the Wolverines and them being just left out of the college football playoffs. Minnesota Golden Gophers. Minnesota and head coach PJ Fleck haven't had their breakout season yet, but Minnesota has remained consistent since Fleck has become head coach. A huge step in the right direction. Minnesota, unfortunately, was up and down all year last year, and a passing attack that ranked 241st, coupled with a rushing attack that ranked 111th, makes this all the more evident. Minnesota also ranked 221st in points allowed in 2023. 4 ranked preseason opponents before the season begins makes for a tougher schedule. Big 14 predicts Minnesota will go 6-6 and be a bubble team for a bowl spot. Nebraska Cornhuskers. Nebraska wishes it was still in the Big 12. Since moving to the Big Ten, Nebraska has finished with disappointing season after disappointing season. Underwhelming to say the least, the Cornhuskers, have changed quarterbacks, coaches, seemingly everything, and yet the result is the same. An underperforming team year in and year out. Yet, it isn't all bad in Lincoln. The Huskers ranked 251st in passing, and 63rd in rushing, and 63rd in points against. It seems with a tweak to their passing game, Nebraska could be right back in the thick of things. An easier schedule has Nebraska set up to do well in 2024. Big 14 has the Cornhuskers going 8-4 this season. Northwestern Wildcats. Northwestern had its own fair share of drama with their head coach being fired due to some serious allegations of hazing and other uncouth practices. Despite this, the Wildcats surprised everyone with a stronger than normal 2023 campaign and picking up more wins than most professionals predicted. A passing attack that ranked 165th coupled with a rushing attack that ranked 236th had Northwestern struggling all year, allowing a lot of points against and finishing 140th with most points against a game didn't help either. Despite these low and poor numbers, Northwestern finished the season 8-5 and 23. We predict a step down in 2024 with the Wildcats going 7-5 in the regular season. The Ohio State Buckeyes, last year's favorite to win the Big Ten, lost to Michigan again in the final game of the year and cost them a Big Ten title and a spot in the college football playoff. The Buckeyes also lost their number 1 wide receiver, Marvin Harrison Jr., to the NFL. Despite this, OSU is favored to win the Big Ten for the 5th year in a row. Ohio State finished 23 with a passing attack that ranked 44th overall, a rushing attack that ranked 160th, and 40th in points allowed. OSU is stacked once again, and with Michigan seemingly depleted of top-level talent, this could be Ohio State's year to get back on top of the Big Ten. Big 14 predicts the Buckeyes will go 11-1 and play for the Big Ten title at year's end. They will also be the Big Ten's first playoff-bound team. Oregon Ducks. The Ducks are one of 4 teams to join the Big Ten this year after leaving the Pac-12. Oregon is a team to be reckoned with, although its defense is suspect at times. A high-powered, fast-paced offense is Oregon's MO and has been for years. Can other Big Ten teams keep up in 24? Oregon's high-caliber offense ranked 1st in passing yards last year, 52nd in rushing yards, and ranked 69th in points per game. Those stats should translate to immediate success in the Big Ten. Could we see Oregon playing for a Big Ten title at season's end? Big 14 predicts a 10-2 season, with Oregon being a bubble team for the college football playoffs. Penn State, Nittany Lions. The Nittany Lions seemingly do well every year until they play Michigan or Ohio State. 2024 could be different. Penn State returns this season with a balanced team with a decent amount of players returning. Ohio State, missing a few key players from last year, coupled with Michigan and its large group of players that left for the NFL, opens the door for Penn State to march its way to a Big Ten title game. Ranking 132nd in passing yards, 51st in rushing, and giving up the 45th most points per game, and that's Penn State ranking 45th in points against, has the Nittany Lions in a good place going into 2024. With that being said, Big 14 has Penn State going 11-1 in the regular season and also being the Big Ten's second team in the college football playoff. Purdue Boilermakers. Purdue struggled last season after going to the Big Ten title championship. just a year or two prior. With the addition of 4 former Pac-12 teams, things seemingly don't get any easier for the Boilermakers. Although they didn't lose too many players to graduation or the NFL draft, Purdue has a harder time keeping up talent-wise with the rest of the Big Ten. A passing attack that ranked 142nd and a rushing attack that was 85th overall should, theoretically, do well in today's game. However, what hurts Purdue is their defense, which was a dismal 241st overall. 5 ranked preseason opponents means the Boilermakers have their work cut out for them in 24. Big 14 predicts Purdue will go 5-7. The Rutgers Scarlet Knights. Near the bottom of the conference, year in and year out, Rutgers football just hasn't been good, even before they joined the Big Ten. Struggling with identity and recruiting, Rutgers' 2024 season should look eerily similar to their 23 season. A horrible 248th ranked passing attack coupled with a modest 86th rushing attack has Rutgers struggling to move the ball offensively. Their defense isn't much better, giving up 118th most points per game last year. Rutgers didn't lose too many players to the NFL draft, but they didn't have that many high-caliber players either. 2024 will be tough for the Scarlet Knights. Big 14 sees Rutgers going 2-10 and staying at the bottom of the conference. The UCLA Bruins. UCLA, one of 4 new Big Ten teams this year, is a dark horse in this conference. A very balanced offense could put UCLA into the conversation of Big Ten championship. But 5 ranked preseason opponents and the cold fact that UCLA falters at times against weaker opponents puts this into question. The Bruins ranked 100th in passing yards and 30th in rushing. Not bad rankings at all, and were 73rd overall in points against. Again, not the worst numbers in the conference. If things go well for UCLA in 24, they could be in line to take the Big Ten crown back to California. However, Big 14 predicts a 8-4 season. USC Trojans. USC just lost its Heisman Trophy winning quarterback Caleb Williams to the Chicago Bears in this year's NFL Draft. With that being said, USC could struggle this year as it tries to find its place in its new conference. USC had one of the most prolific passing attacks in the country last year, ranking 5th overall in passing yards. A rushing attack ranked 172nd helped, but ultimately this team was an air attack team in 23. Ranking 298th in points per game really hurt USC in the long run last year, especially the second half of the season. With a weaker defense and a new quarterback, USC may find themselves on their backs at times in 2024. Big 14 has USC struggling a bit this year, predicting a 6-6 season in 2024 and a bubble team for a bowl game. Washington Huskies. Washington made it all the way to the national championship game last year before falling to Michigan. The Huskies also lost a good amount of talent to the NFL draft this year. Despite this, Washington still should be a top dog in this new conference. The Huskies had probably the best passing attack last season, ranking 2nd overall. They struggled a bit rushing the ball, finishing with a rushing attack that ranked 200th overall. Washington may have been able to throw the ball around at will, but ranking 250th in points against made for some closer than should have been games last season. The Huskies should have an easier time in 24 despite not having their starting quarterback and wide receiver 1 on the roster. That being said, Big 14 has the Huskies going 9-3 in 2024. And to close out, the Wisconsin Badgers. It's strange to say Wisconsin has struggled in recent years. The Badgers used to be contenders for the Big Ten title every year, but lately it seems like they've accepted being mediocre. With the absence of divisions this year in the Big Ten, Wisconsin could start to get themselves back into championship form. Wisconsin didn't have a prolific offense last year, but kept things balanced, as is evident with their 121st ranked passing attack and their 101st rushing attack. The Badgers' shining spot last year was its defense, ranking 88th overall in points allowed. Wisconsin brings back several players this season and have an easier schedule to boot. Wisconsin should go 8-4 as predicted by Big 14. Thank you for tuning in to my podcast, and we'll see you later this season.